one day that he wanted to have a supper with them, and he said the wine was representing his blood, and then the bread was representing his body. The garden was a beautiful garden, almost like Adam and Eve's, but not like that one. Jesus and the disciples went to the garden to pray. Jesus asked them to pray with him, but he said he'll go to the garden and do it by himself. And when he came back, his disciples were asleep. Jesus and the disciples went to the garden and prayed. And then the disciples fell asleep. And God told them to wake up. And they just fell asleep 2 times again. Before he was taken on the cross, he went up to the mountain to pray. And he was probably really scared because it's never really happened to him. He was probably thinking, why would his his life on earth really end like that? But he was also probably thinking that God had a plan for him. One of the disciples that was missing, he came down and he said, I know where Jesus is. He's in this garden. The man that I kiss will be the one that you arrest. Peter saw the soldiers coming to get Jesus. He took one of the swords and cut one of the soldier's ear off. Jesus, he healed the ear back on. And they wanted to take him, and the other guys were trying to protect him, trying to save him. But Jesus says, no, let them take me, because he knew it was all a part of the plan. The chief priests were spitting and hitting Jesus. A king's robe, a version of a king's outfit on him. They twisted together thorns and put them on his head. It stabbed his head so he was bleeding a little. They put a staff, which is kind of like a big stick, in his hand, and they started to worship him like, all hail, King of the Jews, pretending. The soldiers made a little crown that was made out of needles. They put it on Jesus' head. They pushed it on his head really, really hard so he would bleed. He just stood there and froze and did not say a word. Nothing. Hit and spit in his face. I think they were bullying him because he said that he can break down the temple, and he said he can rebuild it in 3 days. Jesus, if I have to, I will die for you. And Jesus said, well, Peter, once they take me away, because Peter knew they were going to take him. He was going to do 3 things, and then after that, you'll hear a rooster crow, and you'll remember that I told you this. And a girl walked up and said, you look like you're supposed to be with Jesus. Danny said, I don't know the man. He told him that, I don't know him, who is he? She said that, you are supposed to be with Jesus. You look like him, you smell like one, and I think you're supposed to be with Jesus. And then last time, he says something horrible. Another person comes up to him and says, aren't you one of those guys' friends? Don't you hang around with him? And he says, I don't know that man. He cried, I am not with the man, and the rooster crowed. The chief priest took Jesus to Pilate. Pilate, he's like the judge or kind of like the governor too. Pilate asked Jesus, are you the king of the Jews? And Jesus said yes. There was another really bad guy in jail. His name was Barabbas. Pilate asked the people, did they want Jesus or Barabbas? Barabbas! Put Jesus to death. Pilate thought he did nothing bad, but they're saying, kill him, kill him, kill him. Once a year, Pilate would make people vote to wants to free. And they went, Barabbas, Barabbas, kill Jesus. And Pilate's like, okay. He was washing his hands and he told them, whatever you want to do. What do you want me to do with Jesus? And they said, crucify him. And he said, do you really want me to do that? And more people said, crucify him. And crucify him. They asked Simon to carry the cross for Jesus. Jesus couldn't hold it. They hammered him on the tree. His hands, and his feet. People were bowing down crying, a bunch, because they were so worried that those men died on the cross. The soldier ran and grabbed a sponge and dipped it in sour wine and stabbed it with a reed and gave it to him to drink. Then people start to shout out, if you were gonna come and save us, why don't you just save yourself? Another guy said, if you're really the son of the king, then you get your great big father to come and help you. There were like two robbers beside him. One was mocking Jesus, saying, oh, if you're really the son of God, save yourself and us too. And then the other ones, he knew who he was, and he believed, he worshiped, he loved Jesus. And he told his friends, dude, do you know who this is? Then Jesus says, you love me and you support me, so you will come and live with me in paradise. When he was on the cross, they ripped his clothes off, and they were playing like a little dice game, and they were like trying to get whoever wins, they get Jesus's clothes. Jesus was on the cross with these two men, and they said, weren't you the man that was with God? They were making fun of him. From the 6th hour to the 9th hour, there was darkness over the land, and Jesus cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me? And then, right on that time, he died. And the men died too. Jesus was on the cross, and there was like a little earthquake. And the soldiers were like, that is the Son of God. Then Jesus cried in a loud voice again, and his spirit left his body. And after he was on the cross, they took him to a tomb. Then there came a rich man. His name was Joseph. He was also a disciple of Jesus. And he went to Pilate and asked for Jesus' body. He wrapped him in clean linen cloth, and then he got a big boulder, a great big stone, and rolled it in front of the tomb. The two Marys, they walked up to the stone to check on him like they usually did every morning for the 3 days. An angel came down from heaven. And Mary Magdalene and Mary were there, and the guards were shaken, and then while they were shaken, after in a little bit after that, they freezed like dead men. And the big stone was rolled over, and it wasn't in front of the tomb. And there was an angel sitting on the top, and they just freaked out. And the angel said, "Don't be afraid." The angel said, "I know who you're looking for, Jesus. Jesus, you're looking for Jesus. He rose from the dead. He's not here. Go tell the disciples, and on the way they met Jesus. They bowed down and they picked up his feet and they bowed down, and he said, "Don't be afraid, go tell my brothers, meet me at Galilee."
Then they ran, and then they went into the village and they started shouting to everybody that he's risen and he was back alive. And they went to the disciples and even said it. And they were all surprised, and then they saw Jesus, and then they just all started meeting each other and greeting each other. It was probably pretty happy for them to see Jesus again after what happened. They said, "This is truly the Son of God." And they had like surprised faces, and they were filled with happiness and joy. And they understand that he was, and he wasn't, that he just wasn't a random man.
But he has strength, I believe. So, that's what happened.